All right, so to start off this episode in particular, start this off, we're not claiming to be child experts at all. And there are plenty of scientists and psychologists out there that are smarter than us and have better information about this than we do. And we're not going to be divulging into the history of societal attitudes towards children because that's a whole other topic. And again, that's safe. That's other people have already done that way better than we ever could. It's just in this episode, we're just going to be talking about media aimed at children and teens as well as families in general.
Yeah, I don't know no nothing. So I'm like, don't let this come back. I don't want this to come back to me in any way. So
It's like we're still learning here, guys. We're still trying to figure this stuff out as well as everybody else.
Yep.
yeah, because and I completely understand like both sides of the argument of like kids needing like better media in some cases. I mean, obviously, like 20 plus years ago, there was a lot of spaces for these types of things. I mean, I definitely want to go for more into it with this, but yeah, I remember there being a lot more spaces and websites for like these types of things as like a tiny little kid in the 2000s. So that's what I remember. For
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys. You guys have I got like a almost like 8 or so
Yeah.
plus years on you guys. So
Yeah. I
Yeah.
definitely do remember not only virtual worlds, but also just more spaces in real life for like kids to just, have fun, be themselves. It's like, remember when McDonald's used to do play places? I mean, okay, some of them still do, but not a lot.
Yeah.
Like, and also with themed entertainment sometimes. Um, I mean, yes, Rainforest Cafe still exists. And that's actually a very interesting point is that while it does seem like these things are falling out of favor in some aspects, the fact that Rainforest Cafe and things like Medieval Times dinner shows still exist means that there is still a market for it.
I
And yeah,
I think it just has to go also with the marketability of like places like Medieval Times and Rainforest Cafe. For some of these themed restaurants, it's not necessarily that they're entirely kiddie themed,
yeah, it's
so to
just
speak.
atmospheric.
Yeah.
It's like you're in a different world entirely.
I mean, look at like here's a really good example. Dave and Buster's and Chuck E. Cheese are two different sides of the coin. I mean, obviously, people are going to take their kids to Dave and Buster's so they can enjoy it too. But you know, I remember Chuck E. Cheese in a totally different type of setting. I mean, I've seen what the inside of a. I haven't gone into one, but I've seen from photos. I've seen from commercials. Like they have totally changed up the thing. They literally turned Chuck E. Cheese into a mini Dave and Buster's with all these like phone games. Like, they basically turned Chuck E. Cheese into like an arcade again, so to speak.
Mhm.
And arcades is a totally different like part of that. But yeah, it's I definitely remember like going into places that were like play places or with the stuff like that. Go like I said with Chuck E. Cheese, there was a lot of just a lot of those, and I'm trying not to pause too much. A lot of these places had a lot more physical activities to
Mhm.
do, especially when I was
Yeah.
younger. Especially when you look at some of these places, the ones that are still around, they still kind of have that internal structure, like so to speak. And I have actually seen like some effort to try to bring some of that kind of stuff back. There's a huge one going up in the Midland Mall right now. But yeah, it's like you see some of these spaces that are generally meant for children that are just kind of losing like the physicality. Like they're just doing like phone games or like screen games.
Yeah. Not only are
Mhm.
they losing the physical aspects, but they're just basically turning everything into bland, sterile, corporatized shops. It's like that's not fun, guys. Like, what are we doing here?
Another example that would be basically in the entertainment situation is like the Lego Discovery Center in Great Lakes Crossing. Like, but the thing is that I've only gone there once and I haven't been there since like 2016, 2017. I don't know what year it was that I went. But but the only problem I have with that company is that they literally force you that you have to have a kid with you to go in, unless you go in for their adult nights. And I don't even know if they're even doing that anymore because of the whole I went before the COVID situation. That's when I went, was way before that.
That's
And then
true.
after that I'd never gone again. So
That's true. I tried to go, me and Tabby tried to go to there one
mhm,
time because we wanted to check it out. Obviously, Lego literally on the box it says 1 to 99, not 1 to 99. I think it's 3 to 99. Um, Speak of that, literally on the box it said has like the minimum age requirement all the way up to 99. And like I can understand you don't want like some people like being weirdos or creeps in like a kid's space. And that's
yeah,
totally understandable. You don't want that. But
exactly.
it's like it's like with Lego, I want to see what's in there. Is it like literally just like a kid's playground or whatever? Or is like I've been to Lego museums or I've seen Lego exhibits. I want to know is it a Lego exhibit that I want to see the Lego exhibit? I've seen like very fascinating stuff in there. It sounds
Hmm.
weird to say, but it's like,
Hmm.
yeah, I think with that Lego specific, like that specific place, I would have wanted to go in. And I kind of feel like I missed out a little bit because I want to see what some of these kids are experiencing. I thought I turned my phone off.
That's okay.
But
Um, oh,
actually, that brings up something very interesting is that I feel like it only makes sense to make better content, not only for kids, but also for parents, because I mean, they're the ones paying for the thing, for the
exact.
events, for all these things that the kids will experience. Like, what are the parents gonna do? Just sit around? Like, what are they doing?
Funny story about that. They had something going on in Detroit. I went with a friend of mine, and it was like the Disney animation immersive experience, I think. I don't know if I got that name right or not, but what it looked like on the ads, can I just call Disney out for false advertisement? Can we call them
Go
out for
ahead,
false advertisement?
do it.
I
Because
mean, I
Just do it.
would. We give them crap anyways. I mean,
yeah, well, let's give them crap for this one because let me tell you, um, my friend and I, we go to this Disney animation immersive experience thing. And we're thinking because in the advertisement it shows like the animation is being projected on a wall in a big giant room. Like it's projected on a wall and you're walking around. Would you believe that the whole experience, you go into this room and everybody's just sitting there? And it's like, luckily, my friend and I were dressed up in cosplay, and we luckily had we found it we got a bench luckily to sit on because we were not going to sit on the floor at this event. But I'm sitting there like, you're telling me we paid for tickets to sit on a bench?
so like what I'm trying to understand is what it was just the projector room. That was
it
it.
wasn't it wasn't like just a projector room. It was like there were multiple projectors that were being shot around the room.
So
So
that
like
was
one
it.
side of the wall would have one part of animation, the other side of the wall would have the other side of the animation. And basically, it was like the same animation was being projected on both sides. It wasn't like a 360 surrounding
What
sound like
was it
thing.
official?
Yeah,
That's kind of weird. Like
Ooh,
you
okay.
would think like art of animation, I would expect like at least like have somebody who was like a Disney animator or somebody who has worked in the animation industry to kind of come and talk about that kind of
Like
stuff.
at least have class like a like you learn about animation,
yeah,
Yeah,
a
like
speaker or something like that at
speaker,
this
yeah.
event.
exactly. That's kind of weird. I feel like it's not as enriching for kids just to be showing like a bunch of
They
different
had
like Disney cartoons on the
they had
walls.
they had like pieces of animation in like it started first as like a semi little museum,
Uh-huh.
and then which had like different things of different animation of from Disney. Like it had like different pieces of animation in frames. And then you would go into this room that was like this big giant room that we were thinking, oh, we're just going to walk around this place and just walk around and watch how the animation was brought to life or something. And no, it was just a bunch of animated videos from Disney, and we're just sitting there on a bench, and I'm sitting there like, so I looked at my friend after we left. I looked at my friend and I said, I'm sitting there like, girl, I hope you didn't pay a lot for this because if you paid a lot for it, I call them and say, get me my money back for false advertisement. That's what I would have done. But that's
It
my
just sounds
rant
like
there.
they just sounded like they expected you just to sit down and point at it like the Pogger moment or something.
Yeah.
Well, there were parts like when they showed part of the animation from Little Mermaid, they blew bubbles. Like there was like a bubble machine that went
Yeah.
off. And then for the snow for Frozen, they would have this like mist that looked like snow. So it's like,
Yeah,
yeah,
that
that's. I'm like, that's it. I mean, no green smoke.
it
Like
it
no green mist for like if Maleficent shows up on the screen or
yeah,
something. Like,
Yeah.
come on, guys.
that just feels cheap.
That
I mean,
that just that just feels very much like look, it's your favorite Disney character. Point at it and clap, please.
point and clap, point and clap. No, that
Point and
reminds
clap, please.
that reminds me, I think I've told you guys about this a couple weeks ago for mine and Tabby's anniversary. We went to the Sloan Museum of Discovery, and it's related. It's totally
Mhm,
related.
mhm,
There was like a huge, I mean, it was a small room, but it had enough stuff. It was a big superhero display, and
hmm,
they had like all like, of course, I feel like I think it was a joint project with like a museum in Indiana or something. I can't remember 100%. But
mhm,
I say that because they had a bunch of like Marvel, like they had some MCU props like in the front run because they had like Iron Man, Black Panther. There was like the 2008 Hulk. But I think what I liked about it, what I think was good for the kids, is they had like these learning experiences. They had kind of made it like a science project in a way
hmm.
where some of these kids could like jump and like touch like see how high you could jump. It's like, oh, this superhero can jump this high. Or there was like a hanging bar to say this is how long this guy can hold on. They had all these like dioramas of like rooms of kids from like the 30s, the 50s, the 70s, like golden, silver, bronze age type stuff.
Hmm.
I thought that was really cool. They even had like they had a display for like I think it's Linda Carter Wonder Woman, like
Hmm.
the 70s Wonder Woman, the one with the cape. Um, I think it was really cool. Weirdly enough, they had Doctor Who. That kind of felt really random. Well, I guess like
And
popular.
I'm like,
Po-
don't you mean Doctor Strange?
I will like Doctor Strange in there. Not that I didn't mind. They just had like this big TARDIS in like the corner of the room. But I think it's because like Doctor Who was big in like the 70s too in America. I think that's kind of why. And also it's kind of big sometimes over here anyway. It had,
Yeah.
aside from that, it had a huge Batman display. I would say Batman took up at least a good chunk of it. A good chunk of it had a 1966 Batman display, um, like a 1989 style Batman display. There was a whole like made of like popsicle sticks. They made the 1989 Batmobile. They had
Mm,
they had this like whole gargoyle with all like Batman's gear. Like it was all interactable though.
yeah.
And I think just giving like these kids like something to physically contact with or like interact with, I think it's like good to give them that kind of experience, especially when it had all these different like it all had all these different displays. I had all these different experiments or whatever. I think it's good for them to learn those type of things. And even had all like these little placards that like read off like different like statistics or like history of these superheroes. They even had a little stop motion thing. They had a little stop motion booth like right near the entrance. I thought
Oh,
that was really funny. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
yeah.
And actually when you reminded me of, well, the first point that I should have mentioned at the beginning is that most of the stuff that we're talking about is from an American perspective. I have no idea what the current situation. I don't know if there's any similar situation in like Japan or the UK or whatever. I mean, in
Yeah.
Japan, they seem to treat like animation like it's like they treat it like it's royalty, but I don't even know. I don't even know what's actually
It does
happening.
seem like in other countries they do treat animation and or children's television with a little bit of a higher regard.
Yeah.
But that's just from my perspective, your perspective. Uh, it's so it's not
Yeah,
that's
because
probably not 100% what that is.
probably who even knows what's going on over there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, we only see them.
secondly, yeah, and secondly, when you were bringing up how kids need that physical interaction, but now all we have is just screens at this
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
And I feel like now initially, if I was writing this like I don't know, like weeks ago, like before I if I was writing this like years ago, I would have said, "Oh, I just blame social media, blame everything on social media." But the thing is that some of the most recognizable social media platforms we see today, like Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, were made in the 2000s. And
Yeah.
Instagram and Snapchat didn't show up until the early 2010s. And
Yeah.
the concept of social media appear in general was being conceptualized way before all of those things.
Yeah, because that's
And with
MySpace and stuff too.
yeah, with the 2000s and 2010s in particular, it was still a time where children had their own dedicated spaces, whether that be online virtual worlds or TV networks, even airing animated shows. And social media wasn't this invasive thing that we see now. And admittedly, I can't say exactly when this shift towards essentially shoving kids and teens onto screens and increasing that blur between what's for children and what's for adult and putting in the bare minimum. I don't know where all of that really began, and I don't know why exactly.
I
But
would say probably even you could hazard to say the 80s. It had kind of had its start, especially when you had all these guys watching like Saturday morning cartoons,
oh yeah.
like on. I mean, obviously, these kids that grew up into adults that were watching Saturday morning cartoons, like put their kids in front of that because that's what they knew. And I'm not saying let's blame the boomers. I'm just
Yeah.
saying, you have boomers that raise their kids watching a lot of TV, and then those kids have kids, and those kids are given TVs, and now we have screens that we can hold in our hand, and now these kids are using these screens in their hand, and it's basically turning it kind of into that once it kind of got into the age of like the smartphone and all that kind of stuff. Like when we could put a video game, or you could put like a mini tablet inside a kid's hand. I don't want to say it was all over, but like that's kind of like when it happened.
Yeah. But I feel like even with those screens, there was
Mhm.
still there was still a space for kids. There
Yeah,
was that line. People knew where that line was between kids, what's for kids and what's for adults. We knew where that line was.
Mhm.
But because ever since ever since social media became so invasive into everybody's lives, they've been almost shrinking that those dedicated spaces by homogenizing them with all the adults on these same platforms
yeah.
just to
Mhm.
monetize everybody through promoting petty infighting and rage baiting just to increase their traffic to the site. And the worst part is these companies know full well the negative effects that it has on children and teens, but they don't care. It's
I
their new strategy to pressure everybody into buying more sketchy products and apps through impressionable influencers and stuff like that. Yay.
Honestly, that's not wrong. I mean, so obviously I grew up in the early 2000s. So I grew up with a lot of the internet was still kind of a new thing. And they were making these sites. Like I remember like PBS Kids had a website. Obviously Disney, when they had like some of their kids stuff, they had when Flash games were like a big thing, especially before like they shut down Flash. Like they would make like all these like websites that like you could set your kids down so they could learn. Like I don't know if you guys remember cool math games or whatever,
Oh
but
yeah.
I
I
mean like
remember that.
Yeah.
that's a prime example. That's not the
Yeah,
only example,
I know,
but
but
like, you had like all these like kids network websites that your parents could watch you, play these games and learn from these games. And, nowadays it's kind of, I don't want to like discredit any parents that are trying to educate their kids, but you have stuff like YouTube Kids, which is like a part of YouTube, but half the time it's not even monitored good enough that some of these kids are seeing like freaking Undertale or like Hell of a Boss or like all these kind of
Mhm.
other things, like very inappropriate stuff for these kids is getting like seeped through into this YouTube Kids algorithm. And the algorithm isn't like maintained properly. So these kids are seeing what could potentially be more adult media. And it's really sad that we
It
don't have this modernization. You know what I mean?
and
it just I'm sorry.
Yeah, no,
and
no, go
it's
ahead,
just
John.
it's like and it's worse because it seems like they are purposefully blurring that line between what's for kids and what's for adults just to homogenize everybody into this one space so they can monetize everybody all the same. But as a result, everybody hates each other.
And
And do
that's
you
the
ever,
oh, I'm
sorry,
sorry.
Oh, go
it's
ahead, go
just,
ahead.
it's just, do you ever wonder why some online communities tend to be so toxic very quickly? I think this is probably the major reason why.
I think sometimes they're just mentally children, but I want to hear what John wanted to say.
Sorry.
I think
Sorry.
it just kind of like sometimes when I go to Comic Cons and all, I see like these 10, 11-year-old kids dressing as these characters from like either Has Been Hotel or Hell of a Boss. And it kind of just breaks my heart a little because I'm like, number one, this is not age appropriate for these kids. Like, literally before every episode of Hell of a Boss, it says 18 plus, rated R. Like, and I'm sitting there like, who's allowing these kids just to play and watch these videos? Also, and it's not just about just what's on the internet, it's also what's on streaming services. I hear that apparently these kids know something about something called Squid Game or something. I don't know what it's called.
It is Squid. It's probably
Like
Squid Game, yeah.
Squid
Yeah,
Game, that's what
maybe.
it's called. Okay.
Yeah,
I don't
Squid
I
Game is the
I
it's
don't
it
I don't have Netflix anymore, thank heaven. Um But I like when I hear like these kids knowing about something like that. I mean, I've heard that that show is horrible. It's horrifying. And I'm
I'm
like, how the
Yeah.
heck are these kids knowing what these things even are?
I
Well,
mean,
Heartbreaking.
you
well,
could,
oh yeah, I'll just say real quick. Well, technically, Squid Game is kind of just winner takes all battle royale type thing,
Yeah,
but it's very, I would say it's very inappropriate for children. But I'll let Jenna go ahead.
exactly.
but
Hmm.
at that point, I just kind of feel like it's, yeah, I feel like in some regards, parents are just not, I'm just gonna be blunt. I feel like increasingly parents are just not giving a crap about what their kids are looking at, and they're just shoving they're just shoving phones and iPads in their faces and not giving a crap what they're looking at. And it's like, and and again, I just feel like what these corporations are doing is
Hmm.
they are increasing that divide between children and their parents so that they're not educated, they're not like actually telling people, like, remember when virtual worlds actually educated both the kids and by extension the parents on internet safety? Yeah, they're not doing that anymore. And I think they probably removed it on purpose because they know they can exploit them better.
Yeah, I did notice that, especially in the early 2000s, um, all the way up to the mid 2010s, we also did have a lot of virtual worlds that were kind of like the social media. So, obviously World of Warcraft was for more like teenagers to adults, but then you had like, I can't remember the name. It's that like anime game, like not just like Maple Story. There was a different one, something Quest, EverQuest, not just
I think.
RuneScape, but it's, they
Mhm.
had like these spaces that were a little bit more kid oriented. I just can't remember the name of it.
Mhm.
But yeah, and actually I actually found an interesting perspective that I found. But it I think one of one of the reasons for this sudden shift is that people used virtual worlds as like a social media platform, so they can all hang out, and they just all and when the shift to regular social media happened, they just all shifted there. But the point is that these virtual spaces, and by extension these real life spaces, they were they we knew where that line was. We knew where that
Yes.
line was between kids and adults. The problem is everything is blurred because everything is on the same site. And
And
that's the
that's
problem.
and the thing is that social media, when it first started, it was just meant to be friends talking with friends.
Yeah.
Now it has truly become not social media, but networking media. That's what it's become.
Yeah.
So when these people say, like, oh, it's so great to have social media, I almost want to clap back and say, like, oh, you mean networking media? Because
Yeah,
that's what it
practically.
initially is. That's what
Oh,
initially it is
yeah.
now.
Yeah, so I did find out what I'm sorry for bringing this back up, but
Hmm.
I did find out what it was. It was Adventure Quest. I
Mm.
don't know if you guys
Oh
remember that
yeah.
one. But
Hmm.
like they had like Adventure Quest, Wizard 101, Toontown, obviously RuneScape. They had all of these very, kid-centric, websites. And
Hmm.
there wasn't they had a lot more moderation so that you didn't have like somebody sharing some very negative worldview or whatever on there.
Yeah.
Or
Hmm.
And actually, first off, what I find interesting is that bringing back to how there are still, if you know where to look, there are still spaces for kids, and you see projects like the Club Penguin rewritten
oh
and
yeah.
Two Town rewritten. They're all brought back because they're
I
still going on
I'd
because
have
there's
I'd
still a
have to
charm to it.
I'd have to argue that that's all, especially for the people that grew up with it and want to keep doing it. But I mean, like, if the kids actually want to do, like, get onto that kind of stuff, that's on them. They want to do it, that's on them.
Hmm.
Yeah, It's funny when we pitched the episode, we were going to more talk about like actual children's entertainment with TV, and we delved on that a little bit. I just completely forgot I was actually talking about physical kids, like the
But
spaces.
I mean, it kind of does. It does kind of count a little bit, but we could skirt back into like actual media because one of the things that I did want to bring up is that while, of course, like real life and the internet always had its dangers, because
Mhm.
yes, unrestricted internet access can definitely lead to kids having fears and nightmares. But
Hey,
but the thing is, like I said, and I'm going to keep on repeating this, you knew where the line was. You knew
Mhm.
which was for kids and which was for adults. You knew where that is. The problem is that line no longer exists.
like some streaming sites have age restrictions, but or like they have like kids um
Kids
channels,
version.
but I'm sorry, but kind of does seem like what parent is paying attention to whether or not the kid is going onto the kids' channels? I guess
Yeah, and
it's not all
also
parents, but some.
I know. And also um bringing back up like YouTube Kids for a moment. It's like the thing is like they're not they're not putting in the effort to actually separate these things. They're not actually putting in the effort to separate these spaces because like I said, they know they can monetize everybody all at once. So they just shove everybody onto this one site.
Yeah.
And one thing that I going back into actually what you were mentioning, John, about kids that like kids seeing things that they really shouldn't have. I actually did heard I actually did see this. I did hear from something from the producer of a video game called Digimon Story Time Stranger that
Mhm.
essentially said, since we're in an era where we don't need children's media, as children prefer works made from adults, so marketing to children is pointless. And it's like, to an extent, I understand that. After all, I mean, for me, I grew up during a time of animated music videos that were playing Evanescence, Linkin Park, and Three Days Grace, to name a few, and they were
Uh
absolutely everywhere.
oh,
And it was
I remember the days of freaking what is it? It's Breaking Benjamin. And
Breaking Benjamin, yeah,
it's like a Breaking Benjamin, Bleach, AMV. I remember that.
yeah.
Freaking
And
I
Mhm.
it was also very angsty and over the top dramatic action
there was
and all
also
that kind of stuff. But the thing is, with those kinds of things, is that it was a space for us. It was an outlet to be creative in a way. Whilst
Exactly. Yeah.
it was a way to be creative. Like I feel like in some aspects, children do want to be treated seriously, but they want to be kids. They want to be creative. They just want to be like funny and all that. But
Mhm.
it's just the problem. What's happening now is that either there's just little to no outlets nowadays for
well,
children to be
yeah.
children, to be themselves and be creative.
Well, here's
Mhm.
another thing is kind of going in with the TV entertainment part or just, video entertainment part is that with the YouTube Kids apps, you have the situation where you know these content creators, especially content farm content creators, will like be making sorry, they'll be making like videos with all this very inappropriate stuff. They'll have kids videos, Squid Game character, da 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 da. This is actually on topic. Um, I can't remember how long ago it was, but my cousin's 6-year-old son was asking me all this content creation questions, and then he's going into like some of these like characters like Anonymous or um the Game Master from Squid Game and all this kind of stuff. And it's like now
Mhm.
fair to be fair, I know his mom. His mom is like the very watchful, like watching over like this kid to make sure he's watching appropriate stuff. But that's the problem. These like content creators, like they know that like they can slip this stuff in. So you have like characters like Blippi, and they make up like there's some of these like jerk people that make like evil versions of these type of characters that other people made and end up doing like actually rude things apparently. And this is just from what he told me. This is from what he
Hmm.
told me, and I'm just like, dude, I really think these are videos you should not be watching, especially if this evil Blippi is like going around like hurting people. Like literally, you are 6 years old, dude. Dude, you should not be like this is nothing. This is not a dig towards my cousin's wife, and she's been really good at making sure that he doesn't watch that kind of stuff. But the fact he's mentioning like characters that are doing this kind of stuff, and then mentioning Anonymous, like from V from Vendetta, all this stuff, and the Game Master from Squid Game, all this kind of stuff. When the content creation that we do is like this, but that's a side point for the content creation part. But like he's mentioning all these more adult oriented characters or like very violent like type characters. I'm like, these people, like, these are like some messed up people that are putting like stuff in like kids media for just like clicks. I
Yeah.
mean, we have the epidemic. It's gonna sound weird out of context. It's a like a Elsa Gate
Oh
or
gosh.
whatever. There's the
Oh
Elsa
no.
Gate thing.
Oh no.
It
Oh
got
no.
really weird. It got really weird for a little bit. Sorry, I leaned into the mic just because I wanted to make a point. But
Hmm.
I just think it's really weird how a lot of these just very, I want to say nasty people.
Hmm.
Some nasty people are making content that still like follows these guidelines that the one thing YouTube is just using bots nowadays just
Yep.
to overview their
Yeah, and
videos.
and that's the thing. I feel like what these content farms are doing, they know that YouTube system is flawed, so they take advantage of it. They exploit
Exactly.
it.
Look at 5 minute crafts type stuff or like in the early days of the internet you they had people like actually watch these videos. I was watching crap like early Smosh and stuff and like I'm surprised that some of their stuff like didn't get flagged, but that was pretty tame. But like I just it does frustrate me because this kid sees me as an uncle, so I guess I do take it a little bit personally. But
Yeah.
it is very kind of frustrating to see people take advantage of the lack of moderation in media, especially
Hmm.
like children's media on the internet. That we have these kids, these little kids. We're not talking like 12-year-olds. I'm not talking about 12-year-olds. It does kind of seem like the older they get, the more they want to watch this kind of stuff.
Hmm.
Like when you get like some of these really innocent kids or whatever, they're watching stuff like getting basically forced to watch like Squid Game or like type of Terrifier, God forbid, it type stuff. It's like these people know what they're doing, and sometimes these people do not have good hearts. And I had sat down with that
Hmm.
kid and told them like sometimes these people are mean people and they want to scare you, and that's because they think it's funny. It's not
And
funny.
Yeah.
also, and just to just to be clear, we're not trying to say all these parents are doing it or they don't care about their kids. It's like yes, some of them do, but to be fair, some of them really are just they don't know any better. Because
Hmm.
how would they know? They're not being told the dangers of the internet enough.
And that's what I said. I
Hmm.
literally just said to kind of just like save time. Jackie is my cousin's wife's name. Jackie really makes sure that Clifford, which is the kid's name, is watching content that's like appropriate for him. So she hears like off. She sometimes she has to go off to the side to do other stuff because she can't do like be there 24/7. But if she goes off the side and then she hears like some really inappropriate kind of stuff or whatever, she turns that crap off. So I really do think it is the attentiveness. It just
Hmm.
really depends on the parent, but I think it's the attentiveness of the parent that is what matters in that kind of situation.
Yeah. And
And yeah,
were we going to finish your thought?
No, that was the thought.
Oh, that was it. But of course, like I was just gonna finish the point that I had previously. It's like, of course, we still have TVY7 shows to be used as outlets for children and by extension teens. But the problem is either these kinds of shows are few and far between or are locked behind a paywall on a streaming service that is increasingly becoming expensive.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
not to mention that the animation industry's focus shifting towards preschooler shows and adult shows, children and teens, unfortunately, like you
Yeah,
said, are consuming content that they really should not be watching.
yeah.
It's
Mhm.
like they're
Yeah, I'll notice that. It's like and maybe I'm just not watch. I just don't watch syndicated TV. That's one problem. But I'll still see like clips from syndicated TV. It's just I tend to notice, especially right in the early 2000s, mid 2010s. That was when like the Saturday morning cartoon would die out.
Mhm.
Is that you would still have these programming blocks for these kids that are just getting home. They're watching, kids. They're watching TV. I remember vividly, I'm getting home from school and there's a new episode of Ed, Edd n Eddy on TV or whatever. I'm locked in. It's that type of thing of where, like, they made the programming blocks and they were accessible to these, like, older than seven, then older than seven, all the way up to 13. Like, yeah. And I think that's another thing is like, we're so worried about the tiny, tiny little kids, like all the way up, like right before,
yeah.
let's say second grade. Let's say second grade. We're so worried about second graders under. Oh no. We're so worried about second graders under that we kind of just like push off any of these kids that are going from second grade all the way to high school off to the side. And I would think that that's prime developmental like education time. Or just like have something kind of like have stories that have deeper meaning, I
Mhm.
guess, so to speak. And I might be dumb for saying that. You know, I my perspective obviously is from an early 2000s standpoint. I was, let's see, 2002. I was 2002. I was 6. So from my perspective, all the way to 2016. 2016. I'm trying to say from when I was a teenager, which would have been like 2011, 2006 to 2011 is like that was my era of like my developmenting, yeah, developmenting, my development. And
Mhm.
there was a lot of programming on that. There was the early 2000s Nickelodeon programming block, Toon Disney, Jetix, obviously Cartoon Network, CN City if you're nasty. Um, but I think I wish that like we're saying, I wish there was a little bit more for the prior to preteen crowd.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I think sometimes that crowd kind of gets left off to the side because
Yeah.
you don't need your little 7, 8, 9 year old watching Euphoria or God
Ooh.
forbid. you know
Gosh.
I was, well, I was 13. I was watching Scrubs and Tosh.0 or whatever, but that's a different story. um I think, yeah, it really just depends on what there should be, like this accessible type of entertainment for people that aren't like babies, let's say
Mhm.
babies to teenagers that are only focused on one thing, and we know what that one thing is. There needs to be like this middle ground. And
Mhm.
fundamentally, I think that middle ground isn't always there. It
Yeah.
needs to be.
Yeah. And so as well, like it just I feel like why it seems like children prefer adult works is because, well, like I said, not only are they being shoved onto platforms with all these adults, it's just as a result of that, they're essentially being forced to grow up from
Yeah,
being like bullied for just existing, for
yeah.
acting their age. It's like, this is a problem, guys.
I think yeah, it shouldn't. The media also just shouldn't like talk down to the child.
Yeah,
You don't want like a Barney the dinosaur or like a Dora effect or whatever with media
yeah,
for kids older than 6 years old. Like obviously
yeah,
there's like media that's like catered to like that
yeah,
age group. I feel, and I might be wrong. I grew up with early Gumball. You know, I it kind of seems like some of that stuff's like just like becoming brain rot type stuff. Like that's what sells. That's what we're gonna put on TV. No, give them some serious storytelling. I know you
yeah.
guys did it with Steven Universe like a decade ago. Come on, guys.
Yeah. And since we're kind of running low on time, I wanted to bring up this point real second is that while I understand that there are incidences where children were legitimately traumatized by something in a movie or a show, like for example, the test screenings for the original script for The Black Cauldron before it was changed.
Hmm.
Although if that movie was made for teens, then why would they be screening it towards kids? But anyway,
Yeah,
but I feel like in some cases of movies and shows traumatize like some cases of movies and shows traumatizing kids is just blown way out of proportion. Kids can be traumatized by literally anything since it's very dependent on the person. I just find it really annoying whenever I see people online go like, "Oh, this is so nightmare fuel and traumatizing to kids." And it's like, while I know some of it is done for entertainment purposes, it's still really cringe and annoying when they do it, and also a bit condescending to children because
yeah.
they're more than capable of comprehending complex emotions.
I which is I find funny because we mentioned about foreign TV shows and programming, all
Yeah,
this kind of stuff. Like, and I hate to be thing Japan, but you have like stage shows, like interactable stage shows that they have these characters, superheroes, animation icons that they bring out for these kids to interact with. In like some of these cases, let's take the tokusatsu genre like that. So a lot of these monster suits are very grotesque monster suits. You know, I'm just trying to say, and I think it really showed with how like people were in the '90s compared to now. Maybe I'm not 100% sure, but you had all these gross monster suits, and then you have these like characters that are beating up these monsters in these like suits. And I think that they could. I'm really trying not to like want to keep talking about that genre, as much because I know sometimes it can be annoying. It's like, oh, all you talk about is tokusatsu. It's like I feel like that's a good prime like programming for, I guess, young, very like middle range children to young teens or to teens because it does have like these monsters that are a little bit grotesque, so it's like some of those kids might like grotesque stuff, but it's not into like the body horror grotesque of like sitting your 6-year old down to watch Friday the 13th or something like that. I'm not saying anything like that's happened, but you know
Hmm.
but I think yeah, I think
but
it's
it's
just the American sensibilities that they think children are so frozen, frightened of everything.
Yeah.
we're just like, no, they're much more sophisticated and intelligent than we give them credit for. And it most certainly does not help that children, especially in America, are being used as a shield by people who don't want to change, that don't want any change that would actually benefit people
And
because
half the time they
they
only,
never cared about them,
and half the
simply
time they
put.
don't even believe it.
And while yes, I think some, and I should point out because whoever is doing this is very variable. Some of it is misguided, but Others
Mhm.
are just not genuine in what they are saying, and they're just essentially throwing a temper tantrum whenever something doesn't go their way.
Yeah, it's empty and vapid is a good, like, I think a good term too. So